Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and CA put out just today a first look at the campaign map, so it's going to be flying around, taking a look at things, so we're going to be watching it, and then going over and trying to pause at various instances. Definitely go ahead and check out the original video for this awesome voiceover and for the highest quality that you can get. It's going to be a little bit downrated when we look at it here. But they start in Ulthuan, and now we get to see the Vortex in action. It looked beautiful. I got to see this when I went to meet up with CA, and it looks fabulous. So Ulthuan here has this ring of mountains that kind of protects the interior, and on the outside there's actually going to be the fortress gates at various positions, and those are, I think there's like just 3 or 4 of them, ways to get in, and each of those fortress gates controls access. So we can put this on pause. So you can see that fortress gate to the bottom. See, I explained a little bit of the mechanics here. Basically, no army can cross through this. I don't believe there's an underway passage or anything. You can't cross into the inner circle until you claim that tile, and that tile acts like a city, but then also it gives you different bonuses and garrisons, I believe, for occupying that gate. The gate itself will actually also, I think you can invest in rituals, and it'll give you special unlocks so that when you go into battle here, you actually have special, I believe, army abilities, or you get the ability to raise like a dragon or something when you're defending. So these are very important points. So you can see here, if you were to attack this position, there's just a couple of gates, and then there's also just 1 point of access by sea. So Ulthuan here is very bottled up. That being said, I do imagine that there may be a way to kind of sprout up on the inside. Presumably, Skaven can, I don't know quite how the mechanics would work, but knowing how good Skaven is at tunneling places, there may be an opportunity for some force to bust into the center of this ring if you tech up enough. Maybe if you mess with the vortex enough, maybe a higher unlock is going to be an ability to bust into this inner circle. But anyways, that's a bit of speculation. This place is going to be pretty easy to defend, but it looks like there's a bunch of different kind of factions in the center, so different sub-factions from the High Elves here, and presumably you're going to be squabbling, because one of the things I'm worried about is obviously, you know, if you spawn on Ulthuan, you're going to be very, very well protected as a player. And so that's why I believe they have various factions here. So as the High Elves, you're not going to start with full control of the island. You have to make sure that you're kind of playing off of the other factions here, and that you find a way to politically gain control. So I assume that's going to be much of the early action here. And then what I assume also is there's going to be some compromising factor to this whole area. Perhaps in order to challenge you early game, there'll be an army, rogue army or something that appears inside, like in the forest or something, or maybe a big fleet that tries to bust through the front. I assume there's going to be something for combat that's going to threaten you here. Anyways, we get to see a big, while there's fortress gates on the side, this is almost the equivalent of a fortress gate navally, with a city here defending the little choke point, and then you can see fleets coming by, and this is the first time we really see an emphasis on fleets. Before, you could see them kind of moving around in the previous Warhammer title, but now we get to see them in their full glory, and they look awesome, especially with the accents given by the various factions. We're going to be flying around, and now you can see the inside of Ulthuan, a couple of the different princes and princesses and mages that you can recruit in Ulthuan, and they talk about how the elves have to expend political capital that you accumulate, and they have to expend it in order to recruit lords. So the more political capital you gain, the more higher tier lords you can recruit. So this is mostly information that we've known before, but it's nice to put it in context. And now we can see some of the approaching fleets. This looks like it's going to be some sort of human race with the horse there. I'm not quite sure who that corresponds to. It may be raiders from the north, or it might also be Tilea and Tilea, although Tilea and Tilea, we do see them, I believe, later in this video, so this doesn't really seem like them. I believe these is Scalig or some of the other Norscan factions. But anyways, like I was talking about, this is the threat that would beset you if you're on Ulthuan. I assume naval raiders earlier in the game, so this seems to kind of confirm it. And then as we move forward here, you can see more of the Elven faction. So it looks like the Elves are really going to be split up between a lot of little minor factions on Ulthuan itself that could perhaps in your squabbling not allow you to have a centralized defense against the enemy. If you had full control, it'd be easy to beat back raiders, but the elves, split up as they are here, it may cause some issues. So that's kind of interesting. And then over here on the right, we don't quite see the best of views, but 2 more armies that have a foothold on Ulthuan. I believe those are High Elves, but again, it may be an early game faction that's there to cause issues. And then here's one of the major gates to get in. So yeah, these are going to be pretty hard to bust through, and there are some of the new battle tiles that CA was talking about. You also have the Brony fleet over here, repping it up with their flag. So that's kind of cool. And now we're going to get to fly over and see a bit of the rest of the New World. And actually, this is kind of an important moment. So a lot of the new campaign map is going to be split up by oceans. Warhammer 1, you could get a lot of places on land. Warhammer 2, the ocean is going to be very important. And so to make this interesting, what CA has done is they've added a lot of little features to the ocean. So one of them is going to be these storms. These are big roving things that can deal damage to your fleets. They'll move around a bit randomly and pop up. And you can, I guess, choose to go through them, but sustain damage or go the long way around. So yeah, that's one of the features they've added. And I can't remember or if they confirmed it or didn't, but a lot of the features that CA is adding, kind of the minor campaign things, these are going to be put back. Oh, and there I believe you can see a dwarven ship. But a lot of the features that they're putting into this campaign map are going to be retroactively fitted into Warhammer 1. So one of the main things that I believe they're doing is going to be what you see here. So anytime you see something on the map that's kind of sparkling, that usually means you can interact with it. So in this case, this is a shipwreck, and so this is kind of like the same thing as what they said with the city ruins. So shipwrecks and city ruins are essentially things that you can go, and they're kind of like little mini quests, or they're kind of like little loot boxes is a better way to say it. So on the campaign map, your army or your fleet will go and you'll interact with it. And what can happen is you might run into it and you might unlock, a whole bunch of booty, a lot of money. On the downside, what you could find is an army might pop out of it. So these are kind of little random loot drop that could have positive or negative effects on the campaign map to keep it interesting. I do remember asking CA in the interview whether or not these would be retroactively posted in Warhammer 1, and I think they did. The only caveat to that is I don't know if they said that in the context of it being just a standalone Warhammer 1 or if it's in the combined map, so I'll have to double check on that. Another thing here also is you can see kind of the reefs along the shore. These are also things that are treacherous to fleets. So let's say this is a pretty promising beach landing. It looks like if you're going to try and cross this terrain, you may suffer some form of naval attrition for standing in these reefs. So that's a little thing of note. And now we get to see another one of the factions along the coastline. So vampires along the coast. Yep, Vampire Coast confirmed. So this is a very interesting faction here. It's basically a lot of the people who came to the New World seeking riches and booty. A lot of them were destroyed in shipwrecks and went down in the sea, and an original colony of vampires kind of swooped up all those dead and have started to form their own vampire coast here. So these guys are going to feed off of the battles between enemies, and it's cool to see that they even have a fleet. And so I'm really interested to see if CA puts some unique mechanics into this Vampire Coast force. It's going to be an interesting feature, and yeah, look at this vampiric corruption spreading across the New World. It looks very cool. And all these minor factions are going to add flavor, and it's going to be the minor factions that are going to keep much of the familiarity of the old world and bring it to the new one, because a lot of those factions have come over. You'll also in this flyover be seeing, like I said, Tilea and Tilea, but then you'll also be seeing some of the greenskins and other familiar units like that. Again, take a look around the map. You can see a lot of these sparkling locations. Those are cities. The loot boxes, again, that you can go and you can plunder, or alternatively, if you choose not to plunder, I believe you can just settle the city and not choose to engage in that plundering expedition. We can see some of the Lizardmen armies spread all around. Now they're going to take us a little bit closer to the city, or the ruin here. So perhaps as an expedition, as Tilea and Tilea, maybe you just want to roam around, collect all the booty, and then get back to your little coastal town and build up a force. And so, yeah, I love how those little trinkets on the campaign map are going to be very interactive. Next, we get to see a rogue army here. So this is led by a treeman. The way the rogue armies work is they're essentially armies that are amalgamations of a bunch of different factions. They're kind of going to be themed around certain things. So, for instance, they keep mentioning one of them, which is kind of a beastmaster, where there's a general who is very good at controlling beasts, and his entire army is composed of beasts from various different armies. Squigs, feral dinosaurs, all sorts of things crammed into one army. And so these, if you don't deal with them, are going to rank up in strength and get more and more of a threat. And I believe when I asked CA, these armies actually can become emergent factions. So if this army gets so powerful that it starts to threaten your local city and it attacks it, if it takes over your city, that city becomes kind of its own faction. And I was kind of questioning, well, if you have an army that's composed of a bunch of different factions, what faction emerges. And I think I'm remembering it correctly. Feel free to correct me if you know. But I believe CA had said that whoever the leader is, so if the leader is a goblin or a greenskin or something, then the emergent faction is going to be a greenskin. Again, I'll try and look that information up and correct it in the comments below. So yeah, that's an interesting thing about the rogue armies. I'm very glad they're bringing these up. They're going to be very interesting components. They're going to be a little weird when it comes to like lore-wise, but definitely add flavor to things. And around here we can see, I believe those are some high elven forces, and now we get to see Tyrion on Turtle Island over here, and you can see his forces. Again, some shiny features around him. So this is an interesting start position. I don't know if this is exactly where he starts, because I don't see very many settlements. So you have very different start positions with very different consequences of your deployment. So here, you're all alone on an island. Compare this to the starting position of Teclis on Ulthuan, and you saw how many settlements, how many armies were all the way around there, super buttoned up, whereas here you're out in the wild. So that's really different dynamics of the campaign from the get-go, and it's going to make these factions play very differently, which is very cool. So yeah, I love that they're embracing the different start positions. But again, like I said, they're going to have to do something. I mean, this guy here is exposed out in the wilds. It's going to be tough. You'd imagine back in Ulthuan, they're going to have some sort of comparable threat. So my idea would be internal politics is going to be a big problem that you have to deal with. Perhaps you have less resources than Tyrion here to start off with, and additionally I assume there's going to be early game raiders on Ulthuan that you have to deal with, and perhaps different crises and events. And another thing also is perhaps on Ulthuan you're more isolated from different things that you have to go do. Like, you know, there's this whole ritual stage that you have to progress and unlock. I assume from Ulthuan you're far removed from that, so it takes a little bit longer to ramp up, whereas if you go for Tyrion, you're going to be right in the thick of it, probably with easy access to some of those ritual stage unlocks. Moving around, we get to see what are the neighbors of the High Elves here, and this is where you start to see, oh, sorry, on the left you could have seen a greenskin fortification. Didn't really seem like there was an army, but they have scattered camps throughout the forest. And then now we get to see one of the temple cities of the Lizardmen. Looks freaking beautiful. And you can see it's powered up here, so this means that it's connected to the geomantic web. The geomantic web, CA has stated, connects various cities, so you can see them on the campaign map. And what happens is you have to connect cities with geomantic webs to power them up. So it's kind of like how the province system works, where once you get all of the cities in a province, then boom, you're ranked up and you can unlock certain abilities. In this case, the way it works is you measure a city's strength by its connections in the geomantic web. If one city has one connection, then it can build certain tier buildings. If you have two connections, you get to unlock more buildings, 3, 4, 5, and etc. The downside is, I believe, if you have multiple cities connected, so if you have a hub and if you have a network, let's say your main city has 5 connections, but the cities it's connected to have just 1 connection. They're all connected to the main one. I believe the net effect on all of them is they revert to the lowest interconnection limit. So I believe if you have a hub that's 5 with a bunch of others that are 1, they're all going to share in the 1 hub. So you want to make sure that they're connected so that the least connected city kind of gets bolstered up, and that'll power up your whole network. Again, a lot of this I'll have to check, but that was my impression from before. Again, feel free to correct me. So that's it for the Lizardmen City. We're going to fly around and see a lot more of the landscape. I do have to say it is freaking beautiful, as always. And here's another one of these green-skinned cities, a Lizardman, skink moving around. And then now we get to see, again, just a very big difference. Waterfalls, all sorts of stuff. It kind of reminds me of the Woodland Realm, where they tried to differentiate it with a lot of different areas of the woods that were kind of more wintry, more summery, more fall. So it seems like in Lustria they're going to be doing a lot of differentiation here. Also, take a look on the right-hand side as we're flying by. I'm going to pause this. This looks like something of an Empire captain. The banner here I'm not super familiar with. The lion here, I believe, kind of seems like Spanish influence. I'm not quite sure what this is. So, but I mean, put your money on this being a Tilea or Tilea. So yeah, there you go. They are confirmed. And then we see Mazdamunzi. They do announce that he is in a bit of a stance here that allows him to have better, he gazes into the future or whatever, and is able to kind of improve the visibility range of his army. I assume it's going to detect any forces that are stealthing or do things of that nature. So yeah, unique stances for Mazdamundi. They haven't really announced exactly what the details of what he's doing is here, but I believe part of it may help tied to the lore of when every time the old ones are kind of meditating, or sorry, not the old ones, every time the Slan priests are meditating like this, they can communicate with one another. So I wonder how that's going to work. And obviously, you know, when they're meditating in the lore, they could combine mental powers to move mountains. I'm not quite sure they're going to go that far, but maybe this will allow you to interconnect armies or do something of that nature. Maybe have better recruitment or technology research. And then we fly around, so we see more of these cities up close, the cities that you can either plunder or build up. And then we see Krokgar, not too far from Mazdamundi, and then he's going to turn about, and he's going to face the Fallen Gates here, and these are going to be the ones that you saw in that E3 gameplay demo. So yeah, that's it. We've completed our fly-through. Again, very conspicuous in their not being here is going to be the Skaven. Didn't see anything of them. And then also, we didn't see anything of the Dark Elves. Didn't get to see Nagaroth. So yeah, we're going to have to wait for that second fly-through where I assume we're going to be seeing those two other factions. So yeah, stay tuned for that. That's about it for this video. So yeah, definitely check out CA's main video where you can see most of the information they posted in high def and all that. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more and see you in the next one. Peace out.